Get to the game that I wasn't sure we'd be talking about right out of the gates today, because I thought, based upon the first half when it was 17-3, it was just going to be methodical and second half boring and check the box and, a couple big plays more for the Dolphins and that's it. But the Patriots hung around. The Patriots made it interesting. And it went down to the last minute or so with I don't want to say controversial call, because I think they got it right.
I do too.
But on fourth down, 4th and 4, I believe it was, the throw to Mike Gesicki, who did everything in his power to try to get to the sticks. Once he realized it just wasn't happening, back went the ball to Cole Strange, and he rumbled, bumbled, and stumbled, and the way they spotted it, he had gotten there. Now, as he fell, I thought, he hasn't made it. He didn't make it. But then they came out with the spot, and it's like, hey, you know what? They did make it. They're telling us to move apart a little bit so the screen behind us doesn't say big turd, I guess. So he did make it, and according to the spot. But then when we start seeing the replay, it's like, I don't think he made it, but will there be clear and obvious evidence to overturn it? That's what surprised me, because under the strict clear and obvious standard, because I've had people explain it to me before. Dean Blandino, when he was the VP of officiating and working for the league office and doing a great job explaining what this standard was, because you don't re-officiate the play with the benefit of video. You look at the video and you ask yourself, is it clear? And is it obvious? And I remember he explained it to me one time in the context of a punt, I think, in a Bears-Seahawks game, where you could tell by looking at the video, the ball clearly moved, which means it had to have hit the leg of, I think it was a Bears player, either Bears or Seahawks. But you could tell the ball doesn't normally move like that. So there's no way that happened without hitting the player. But he said, for it to be clear and obvious, we have to see it hit the player, so we can't overturn that. And I thought of that last night with that, because I don't think it's clear and obvious in the classic sense that he failed to make it, because there's no way to know with 100% certainty that he didn't. I believe he didn't, and I believe the call on the field was incorrect, but if we're going to be true to the clear and obvious standard, I was surprised they overturned it.
Really?
Yeah, even though they got it right. So I got no problem with it at the end of the day. But it just adds to this confusion and the temptation when it's time to engage in replay review to not apply the standard and say, you know what? I know what happened. Back to that Bears-Seahawks play. I know that ball moved, so I'm going to rule it was a fumble, even though I didn't see with my eyes on the videotape clear and obvious evidence of it. I don't think because there's no, as Mike Tirico was saying last night, it happened away from hash marks. It happened away from a clear thing that you could use to be 100% sure that line, the old parallax view, like if you're sitting in the passenger seat of the car, it looks like you got less gas than you have. It looks like the car's going slower than it's going because you're looking from the side. We didn't have a clean, straight down the line angle. I still think he was short, but as that term has been explained to me over the years, I think it was a stretch for them to find it was clear and obvious. That's all I'm saying.
I didn't. It was right down the line. You could see the orange marker behind it.
But it was turned. It wasn't straight. It was turned just enough that you got to say, is it clear and obvious? Again, I'm fine with it as long as I get it right. But it does introduce that element of where's the line between, I think we're right, the hell with clear and obvious, because I think that's what came into play last night.
Maybe it did. I honestly thought from the get-go when he got the spot first came in, I went, oh, that was a bad spot by the ref. He didn't get there right away, because you saw the leg fall, the ball was in the right hand, you saw that the knee and shin was down. Yes. Right, so I thought it was pretty apparent. I know. I mean, listen, it's close. I get you there.
Pretty apparent. It's not clear and obvious.
Well, I just go back to it and obvious. I mean, they don't paint lines on the field.
Right.
So I don't know. Then it's never going to be clear and obvious.
Exactly. Well, because they're still using 2 chains.
But I mean, there was a yellow line, and we saw, and I know the yellow line's not official. I also know how long a yard is.
Right.
And right now, his knee hits there, and his body wasn't at that orange marker. And we're looking right down the line.
I know, but the orange marker isn't. That orange pylon is a camera. My point is, they tell us clear and obvious, clear and obvious, clear and obvious, clear and obvious. And this is the classic situation where it's very difficult to have clear and obvious because they don't have a full grid with lines drawn where we can be clear and obvious.
I know.
So my point is, they got it right. They got it right. That's as clear and obvious as it gets in that situation. Yeah. But that situation is not conducive ever to clear and obvious. When you're away from a hash mark, when you're away from a line, when you're away from some sort of objective marker on the field that you can use to cross-reference. I mean, anytime you start cross-referencing and doing that, that's when a guy like Blandino will say it's not clear and obvious. If you got to look at two different angles and piece them together, it's not clear and obvious. If you got to say, well, I see this, I see this, I see this. And so, again, I think they're constantly going to struggle with that because there's what you see and what you believe, and then there's the clear and obvious standard.
Well, we knew where the first down had to be. He had to get to, what was it, the 29, and he did not get to the 29. That to me, I disagree with Dean Blandino. We saw clips there to go, he didn't get to the 29.
I believe they got it right.
Right, I know.
But I don't want to belabor the point. I just think that it underscores the fact that sometimes they just re-officiate the play with video instead of apply the clear and obvious standard. And as an advocate for having someone in the booth wearing the black and white stripes who's a member of the crew who actively re-officiates with video and has the benefit of those angles and talks to the referee on the field and says, look, I'm not down there with the rest of you trying not to be trampled by the gladiators without the benefit of helmets and pads. I can look at this dispassionately and say he didn't make it, spot the ball here. I'm fine with officiating via video. But we just need to keep that in mind because at some point there's going to be a call where it really isn't clear and obvious and it's close, but somebody's going to think that's what happened, and we're going to be saying that shouldn't have been overturned.
They're over-officiated, right? I could go to the end of the first half where they had the 10-second runoff, right? Barrios caught the ball down by, what was that, the 4 or 5 yard line, right? They called him out of bounds, then they reviewed it, and his knee touched just barely. And I know that was clear and obvious, but my point is for 3.5 quarters, that would have been out of bounds, the whole half, that was out of bounds, stop the clock. But now we're going to go back and nitpick and re-ref the play. And that, to me, is where, okay, that's the world we're living in right now.
Well, but that's the way it's always been since they've had replay reviewed in the final 2 minutes of the half of the game. They make it automatic review of those situations. Look, I've said for years.
It was a phenomenal play by Mac Jones, who was under pressure, right? It was a phenomenal play by Gesicki. I give the refs credit for letting the play go a little bit and not blowing the whistle and saying forward progress, right? And listen, I hear what you're saying. There's going to be people that disagree with me. There's going to be people that disagree with you. But from what we've seen with spotting the football and all that across the league on different plays, I thought that was standard to what they always do. It just gets put under a microscope because it was the last play of the game and it cost the Patriots the loss.
So final score 24-17, and it was 17-3. And look, and I'm in the similar position you are because we're in here doing videos, and the game's still happening. And by it's the end of the third quarter. It's like, what the hell's happening? How'd they score the touchdown? And so you almost have to go back and rewatch the whole game, which is something that hopefully I'll have time to do this week. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.